Welcome, welcome today for the Reapplying for the Activate Fellowship webinar. So glad that you are joining us today. For a quick overview of today's presentation, we're going to be talking about the Activate Fellowship benefits, and we're going to jump right into the content for reapplying for the Activate Fellowship, updating your application if you'd like to pivot with a new idea, as well as some next steps. Here joined with me today, I have Rick Kempinski, the Director of Fellowship Recruitment, and I am Kerrigan Turner, the Outreach Associate. Any questions, issues that you might be having during the meeting, please let Rick or me know. Just a couple of housekeeping rules before we get started. I do ask that you keep yourself on mute during the presentation, but we will have an open Q&A session after. This meeting is also being recorded for internal and external purposes, as we do post these videos to YouTube after the meeting for you to access at any time. If you are uncomfortable with your video being on, you're more than welcome to turn that off during the meeting. Additionally, once we jump into the live Q&A session, if you do raise your hand, you will have to come off mute, but you're still more than welcome to keep your video off for the entire call if you'd like. And again, any questions, any issues that you're having, definitely let Rick and I know. With the Q&A session at the end, if you have any questions that come up during the presentation, you're more than welcome to drop those in the chat in the meanwhile. Without further ado, let's get started. So more about the Activate Fellowship benefits. The Activate Fellowship is the premier program for scientists on a mission. We exist to support our fellows, full stop. Our mission here at Activate is to empower scientists and engineers to reinvent the world by bringing their research to market. Our fellowship is an intentional path that enables these scientists and engineers to transform an idea into a product that addresses real and profound societal needs. Our job is to support you in your transformation from scientist to entrepreneur so that you can then ensure that your innovation makes an impact. This picture is from our most recent retreat in June and includes staff, current, and alumni fellows. Building community is very important to us and is still regarded as one of the most important benefits of the Activate Fellowship. So more about the fellowship itself. It is a 2-year fellowship. The Activate Fellow receives $100,000 in a yearly living stipend, plus travel allowance, health insurance, and a relocation stipend. The project itself receives $100,000 in R&D funding, and you also have access to at least $75,000 in additional flexible capital through our venture partner program. We also provide you with an expert community. So you have the full Activate team, as well as managing directors being the pillars of their community at your disposal. You also have an unparalleled network of scientists, engineers, technologists, and entrepreneurs to help support and guide you through over the time, as well as a vibrant fellow and alumni community to help support. For those world-class tools for scientists, we have entrepreneurial education as well as world-class research expertise. For the entrepreneurial education, I really like to think about it as a mini MBA for scientists. You're really getting that curriculum for the scientist turned founder. The custom-built mentorship, intensive workshops, and professional development throughout the duration of the fellowship. For the research expertise in our in-residence communities, we do have relationships or partnerships with lab facilities that help protect your company's IP rights, but also to give you access to equipment and or a lab space or a workspace. So our fellows work across 16 verticals, all aligned with our broader mission to address climate change, as well as other global challenges by reinventing our economy to be sustainable, resilient, and equitable. In each of these areas, Activate is assembling a coalition of funders, commercial partners, industry advisors, and tech experts to help guide you. So we've talked a little bit about managing directors, but I wanted to show you each of the MDs for each community. So these are the people that you will be working with closely. The managing directors, again, are the pillars of their community. Being former science entrepreneurs themselves, they are there to provide that one-to-one mentorship as well as that brain trust through the duration of the fellowship to help you meet your goals. You also have a local fellowship team, which consists of a fellowship manager and a fellowship associate to keep things going. And you also have a partnership team who is responsible for making intros and forwarding relationships that can help support you. So Activate started in Berkeley in 2015. And since then, we have grown to the Northeast, as well as most recently the South, with the addition of Activate Houston. These 4 in-residence communities allow fellows to immerse themselves in founder-forward cities with strong ecosystems and resources to thrive. For those who want to make an impact on their local communities, we introduced Activate Anywhere in 2021, allowing for a virtual experience from the comfort of your own home with quarterly in-person visits to encourage that community bonding. So more about reapplying for the Activate Fellowship. Around 20% of all Activate Fellows have applied to the fellowship more than once before being awarded the fellowship. So if you did make it your first time, what's the immediate next step? And that would be getting feedback. Our feedback policy states that all applicants do not receive feedback on their application due to our current team bandwidth. We simply at this time cannot support providing robust feedback to 800 plus applications at this time. However, applicants who do reach the phone or video interview stage in the selection process may receive application feedback from the community team they interviewed with. However, this process is also optional. If you did receive feedback from Activate on your application last year, please use this to refine your application, but we'll get into a couple of extra tips and tricks that you can use as well. However, if you didn't receive feedback on your application, this presentation is for you. So let's start off. You didn't get accepted into the Activate Fellowship. It's time to think about that mindset. So the first thing that I suggest to you is to leverage your support and resources in the meanwhile as you're thinking about reapplying. Again, as I just touched on, fellows have reapplied and succeeded. Leveraging your local support as well as Activate's resources can help improve your application. Advancing further, because you're reapplying for maybe a second or third time, familiarity can be an advantage to you. Having gone through this process once or more, you can better anticipate what makes a compelling application. And lastly, reaffirming your commitment to entrepreneurship. Reapplying and unfortunately failing sometimes is a common part of this journey, but it shouldn't be looked at as a step back, but a step forward. So you want to reapply. So let's talk about updating and refining the application. To refine your application, we're gonna talk about showcasing your growth, clarifying your impact, strengthening your team, and realigning with your goals. So for more information on this, how should you showcase your growth from year to year? How has your tech evolved? Do you want to highlight any technological advances that you made in the meantime, customer validation, or market validation, customer discoveries, as well as research discoveries, or any momentum that you gained over the past year, whether that be through media coverage, partnerships, or your first customer? Definitely noting these on your application will just help us understand kind of what you have been doing in the meanwhile and how you are still forwarding your company. To clarify that impact, you're going to clearly articulate the value and the impact of your technology. How will this innovate, improve, or disrupt the industry you're looking to enter? And for a societal impact, how will this impact the environment, humans, animals, or will it take more of a holistic approach, touching one or more of these things? And finally, once you have your impact clarified, once you've showcased your growth, you're going to realign your goals and your plans. Emphasize how this project aligns with the goals of the Activate Fellowship. So thinking about how this fellowship can truly accelerate your company's pathway to market, and what perspectives can you provide to enhance the fellowship experience with your cohort. Kind of touching on this with the 2 goals, as you know, in the application, we do ask more personal information to get to know you more, as well as we ask company as well as technological information. So just thinking about those 2 to make sure that your goals for the fellowship personally and professionally do align with what Activate is looking for. And lastly, strengthening your team. Team dynamics can shift a project scope and offer more diverse perspectives and expertise to help enhance that technology. As a reminder, you may have more than one employee, co-founder, or advisor noted on the application under the entire team section. This may include PhD advisors, business leads, technical leads, and/or team members. However, you may only apply to the Activate Fellowship as an individual application or a team application, as a team of 2, including yourself. And as a final reminder, only the primary applicant or primary Activate Fellow receives the $100,000 living stipend. So if you're reapplying, but you have somewhat of a new idea, applicants may apply once per application cycle with one proposed project or company. Applicants do not have to continue, however, to submit the same project or company year over year. If you've had a recent technological update that is causing your idea to pivot, or maybe you have another idea with initial results that you want to apply with instead, let's talk about how you can refine your application. So first, communicating the pivot. How does this new idea align, if at all, with the new with your market or technological advances? Is it a completely new idea, or are you building upon an idea or a product that you already have? Also, does this product or company meet our eligibility requirements for projects? Was this pivot necessary for you? How does it strengthen your overall strategy for entering the market? Again, thinking about if this is a brand new idea or if you're just kind of building on an idea or a product you already have. Once you've communicated that pivot, it's time to validate that new approach if you haven't already. Do you have any early stage validation of the new idea from lab results or early modeling? Definitely doing the research and discovery on your market will help you build a compelling application and really help you validate if this approach is worth it. Can also conduct techno-economics as well as getting your models at activate.org/learn, as well as watching other YouTube videos or getting other entrepreneurial resources from your local community. Finally, once you've done those two, you can articulate that vision again and apply for the Activate Fellowship. Addressing those risks and how you plan to mitigate those, as well as your goals for the 2 years of the fellowship, will help you again just to build that compelling application and help you finish that up if you have that newer idea. So for next steps, and then we'll open it up for the Q&A portion. Applications are opening in just a few short weeks. Applications are going to open on September the 4th and close on October the 23rd. After applications close, we do jump into our rigorous selection process over the winter to gear us up for our favorite week of the year, finalist week. March the 24th through 28th of next year, around 15 to 20 applicants per community will be invited to deliver a virtual pitch to the Activate ecosystem, talking about their goals for the fellowship, as well as more about their technology. We then select our fellows in April for the fellowship to begin in June with the annual fellow and alumni reunion and retreat. For eligibility requirements and acceptance into the fellowship, you must have a bachelor's degree in 4+ years of post-baccalaureate scientific research, engineering, or tech development experience. And again, this can include much at any career stage as long as you have that research experience all the way up into mid to late industry or career stage. You must be leading the commercial development of a hardware-based technology innovation for the first time if awarded the fellowship, i.e. not a repeat hard tech founder. You must be committed full-time to the proposed project or company if awarded the fellowship. So you must close any prior employment before joining the fellowship, again, if you are that primary Activate fellow, because you are receiving that living stipend. You must be legally able to work in the U.S. for the duration of the fellowship, and this can also include those foreign nationals, those on work authorizations. You would just need to communicate your plans for having that work authorization for the duration of the fellowship on your application. And finally, you must be able to communicate proficiently in English. Your proposed project or company must be in the physical or biological sciences or related engineering disciplines. You must still be in development and not yet ready for full-scale product sales at the time of the application deadline. And finally, you must not have raised more than $2 million in debt or equity funding from non-governmental sources at the time of the application deadline. So debt or equity funding from investors, again, that does have a cap of about $2 million. For governmental funding, such as SBIRs, STTRs, and those type of grants, do not have a cap on them. Lastly, to touch on just things, ways to prepare. You can definitely talk to people outside of academia, networking to find people who could add value to your project. Once you find those people who could add value to your project, deciding whether you want to team up with additional co-founders, advisors, who could help assist you with your grant writing, research proposals, or possibly even being a co-applicant when you apply for the fellowship. For that research, you could do more market research, talking about your value proposition, what your beachhead market will be, your competitive advantage, trends in growth in the market. These are just the kind of questions that will help support you as you begin to frame your company's market potential. Again, I already touched on this before, but definitely building those techno-economics and models. But you can do so at activate.org/learn at any time. And finally, learning more. Participating in other accelerators, other short programs are all great feeders into the Activate Fellowship to help you get that early customer discovery or help you start to frame your company. Those are just those other accelerators and incubators. Again, just great programs. But there are also a lot of other courses, programs, blogs, and videos about entrepreneurship that you can learn more about. And with that, I will stop sharing my screen. I do see that we have some questions in the chat, so I will get to those first while you all are gearing up to hop in the queue for the Q&A session. Again, at the bottom of your screen, you're going to see the reaction tab. It's going to be a little heart. You just click on that heart, and then you can click on the raise hand function, which will populate you into the queue up ahead, and then I will start on that. Once beautiful Norman has kicked us off, I will get to these questions in the chat first, and then I'll get to you, Norman. The first question I have is from Rachel. It says, is there more space in the application to get into market analysis and techno-economic results than in years past? Or is this something that can be attached as a supplement? What I say back to you, Rachel, is you definitely should have at least possibly communicated a little bit on your market analysis. As well as those techno-economic results. If maybe just a chart or maybe just a bullet point slide of insights that you see or goals that might be coming from that, I'm definitely communicating on that. However, you can also attach these things at the end of the application as supplementary documentation. That is perfectly fine.
Can I ask one little follow-up to that too?
Sure.
But thank you for that. Yeah, I just didn't, that's such a very tight application to get a lot of that information in.
I understand.
Last year, also the application was like you had to complete each page before you could see what was on the next page, which was a little difficult for pre-preparing a lot of the attachments that I wanted to do. Like I had heard in in an info session that you could have letters of recommendation, but in my review of like the preamble materials of the application, there was nothing about that. And then it was only at the very last, like I'd completed and saved every single page. I was like, oh, that's where that would go. So I wasn't able to like survey and kind of like collect my list of everything I needed until I actually started filling out the application. Is that going to be different this year?
Yeah, I can touch on that a little bit. First, I will say about the letters of recommendation. They're not required at all this year. They were only optional last year, but you do not have to put in any letters of recommendation this year. So only that supplementary documentation will be only, and again, that is also optional as well. So it's only if you need that it is available to you to upload. What I will say about the application in itself and kind of going through the pages, once the application opens, you have the entire 6 weeks to complete the application. What I usually recommend to people is, because it's a little funky with the different pages, if you want to basically, once the application opens, getting access to it, once you get into it, copying and pasting and just kind of pulling it out into its own document. If you even want to kind of like type a couple of words just to save it to get along to the next page, although I think we have fixed where you should be able to access the application without saving. I'm not 100%
you had to like complete each field to be able to get to the next page last year. The year before that, you didn't have to, but
yeah, it's because we did switch to a new platform system last year. I will say that I believe because we knew that we had issues with that, with applicants asking how they should do that or get access to the full application. I can check on that to be sure. Although again, I think we have fixed that UI. But again, if you are having any issues, I would say just kind of trying to copy and paste to pull it out to its own Word document. So then you can edit and have full access and really just kind of copy and paste your answers back in. That is my typical recommendation, especially if you're kind of having issues, just to pull that out into like a Word document. or somewhere where you can just edit freely and then pop it back into the platform system.
Yeah, just as long as you can get to the second page to do the
Yeah.
same thing. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. Alrighty. All right. So Rick has answered most of the questions. So I will actually hop in the queue now. What is your question?
Sorry, is that me?
Yeah.
First off, thank you, Kerrigan, for giving the overview of the Activate Fellowship again, and it's super useful just to get refamiliarized with it. Um, my question is regarding the verticals, specifically the life sciences. So I understand that Activate doesn't support companies trying to develop therapeutics. What I wanted to double check is, do they support projects and companies that are developing medical devices?
With medical devices, I will say that we are scoping out our life sciences vertical because there's just a lot more biotech and med tech just coming up at the intersection of different medical advances and technology. With those medical devices, I will say that there still needs to be a more like a holistic approach to that impact,
Mm-hmm.
because in most cases it is only going to enhance those humans. How is there any kind of novelty to the medical device? Is there possibly another pivot? Do you absolutely need FDA approval with the medical device that you're seeking to create? These are somewhat of the questions that we're starting to ask once we get those applications in. What the advice that I will give to you is, if you're still kind of unclear, if you're thinking, well, I might have other uses for this medical device, but maybe my beachhead market is like hospitals or, like doctor
Yeah.
offices, things of that nature. It will really get into what the tech actually is. Is it more traditional? Is it more non-traditional? I would say that we go for more non-traditional. If that still is just kind of too general, I
Yeah.
would say send me an email at apply@activate.org with a
Okay.
little bit more information on your tech, and what it actually is and what it does. That way we could talk about specifics to see if you are more eligible or if I need to kind of pass it up to our team for their thoughts and consideration.
All right. Appreciate that. Thank you
I
so
hope
much.
that helps.
It does. I'll definitely follow up. Just I know it's a more of a nuanced question, so appreciate it.
Thank you, Antonio.
Hi, Kerrigan. Hi, Rick. It's nice to see you guys. I
As
have
well.
two questions. One is on the co-applicant. Does a co-applicant have to be a co-founder, or could they be like a senior, like engineering person in the team?
Yeah, so to answer that question, they don't have to be an exact co-founder of the company, but they should have the autonomy to also be able to help forward the company, in not necessarily in your absence, but also kind of be that thought partner in the more high level decisions, or be expected to kind of be more of a key team player and make company decisions, is what I will say. So they don't have to be a co-founder, but still more of a
Mhm.
executive-ish type position, or
Mhm.
that kind of decision making is what I would say.
Yeah, and if another way to put this, if I would put this on the spectrum of an advisor all the way to, someone on the executive team, employee would be the cutoff. It has to be more than employee. Am I interpreting this correct?
Yes,
Okay.
it does need to be employee.
Okay. And my,
Absolutely.
second question here is, I'm a part of a LEAP program. That's a lab embedded entrepreneur program by the DOE. And, there are other LEAP folks who I know we are talking about Activate and whether that could be a part of our strategy to grow. And I am unsure, and I'm happy that Rick is here, whether, I'm eligible from the get-go. I mean, my program ends at the beginning of this, at the start of the next Activate cycle. So I'm wondering if there's some kind of interplay right there that could be made.
So last year, I remember us talking about this actually, Shantonio. So we did decide that LEAP program, LEAP program participants could also participate and activate. Rick, did we get anything? Have you heard anything come down that was anything different than that? Or is that still, I guess, the standard that we're going with for this year? So I haven't heard anything this year, but I know that it was at least a topic of discussion a little
I
bit.
was answering a question. What's the question again? I'm sorry. What was
Oh,
the?
program. If you're still if you're in a LEAP program, can you also
Oh,
participate in Activate? I don't know if that has came down with anything different, but I know that they could apply last year. I just
I
don't know
think
if
the
they.
answer is yes again, but we could double check for you and get back just to confirm. Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, because we're transitioning out and we need to find a new community. So thank you.
Yeah. Let's just follow up with you on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. You are up.
Hi, Florian. Thanks for giving a great overview. I have one, well, maybe two related questions. The first one being, so how are the solo founders perceived in the application process? And the second part to this is, would you be able to share statistics of the companies that were selected and like how many of them were solo founders versus a team?
That is a good question. I don't know if I have those exact split for the past year. I don't know off the top of my head, kind of thinking about it. But what I will say is there's really not a preference if you are a solo founder or a team of two. It's really if you just have, kind of a co-founder, an advisor, someone who you want to go through that journey with you, essentially. So solo founders aren't perceived really any differently than a team of two. It's really just kind of, you get the same application. I will say that, I mean, the main difference is, solo founders, again, just do not have, that co-founder. They're still, expected to participate and they still build community as well and still kind of find that community with other, leaders or other cohorts. So yeah, Rick, do you have anything to add there for specifics on how they're perceived? Yeah, I don't think there are too many main differences or anything to really highlight.
No, I don't think while they're in the process, there's any difference between you're just going together as a team with one other person or by yourself. So there's nothing. I mean, it kind of rolls into Janice had a question too. What would be the main reasons for applying as a team rather than a single founder? I mean, I think, one is your expertise might be different. So you want that other person to help bring along, either, have a little bit more of the business side of things, like you're more the technology person or they're more the technology person. So it might be easier to split up those roles and responsibilities. And also when you do your presentations, they'll be able to answer different questions about maybe the market research side of things or the customer discovery, however you divvy up how you handle everything. If you're doing it all yourself, you're doing it all yourself. That sounds like a lot more work, I guess, to me. But also, some people just prefer to do that and have more control over the company, like more of that leadership role. You learn more of that individual side. So it's really just an individual preference. But in terms of the selection process, the committees and the reviewers they're not giving preferential to either solo or co-founders in the process.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Nathaniel, I have you.
Hi, can you hear me? Yeah, I had a question regarding on how the R&D funds may be used. We usually work in co-working spaces and even labs are sometimes shared. I wanted to ask if it could be applied to improving infrastructure or getting their own place for the company, or if it was just like direct R&D costs.
So it's not completely direct R&D cost, but it does need to be associated with either your product or your company or your project or your company. So that R&D funding can be used for you to get lab space. It can be used for you to hire as well. Again, just kind of directly related back to that either proposed project or company, not kind of, you wouldn't be paying yourself or well, at least yourself out of like the R&D funding, but you could use it for potential other employment if it is related back to the company. A little confusing, but you do get a little bit more leeway than just kind of typical R&D funding as you're thinking about it. I hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Hey, Chantonio.
Yeah, so for this year application, I'm probably thinking about, taking the back burner and put up my co-applicant to be the primary recipient. But just one clarifying question. Only one person is supported through the Activate Fellowship, not both applicants, correct?
That is correct. So the primary Activate Fellow or the primary applicant on the application is going to
Mhm.
be the Activate Fellow that is funded. For the co-applicant or affiliate Activate Fellow, as we call them, they still get to participate in all the benefits of the Activate
Mhm.
Fellowship, but they do not receive the living stipend.
Okay. I guess my next question is, continuing on the point of, what role this co-applicant can be in. They have to be in like a senior role, minus senior engineering, or an executive role, right? So let me see.
It's it should be expected to be again more of an executive role. Like they should still
Mhm.
be helping for the company, but again, that decision making authority is what is important to like highlight and like to keep in your mind. Your
Yes.
co-applicant should again have that decision making authority, not completely over you or maybe equal to
Mhm.
you, however you kind of want to split that up, but again, they should just be expected to also have the autonomy to make decisions on behalf of the company. That's what I would remember as like the differing factor
Mhm.
between like maybe an employee and advisor, whoever you might want to be either the Activate Fellow or the primary applicant if you still are
Mhm.
thinking about coming on as that co-applicant. They should still
Okay.
have that decision making power. If you're thinking about that, we can definitely talk about it though. I know you'll come up with
Mhm.
some more questions, Antonio. I know you will.
Yeah, and maybe my last question there is like, how do you quantify that? Is it on the cap table? Because I spoke with some Activate fellows who have like faculty advisory and stuff, and the cap table seems to be the blueprint to really.
Cap table, I would definitely say is the blueprint, and it's just something that we'll kind of ask
Mhm.
you about. Like, there's not, we really don't interfere in kind of how you want to lay that out. That's more so
Mhm.
you just becoming a company leader and a CEO. We would ask about that cap table and kind of the split, and probably ask any questions. I don't have all the specifics on it, but I do know that we at least ask for those if you do have one.
Okay.
It is
All right.
also
Thank you.
later on in the application or selection process, I would say. So it is not required on your application.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Kerrigan.
Vasha, I hope that I'm saying your name right.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you guys so much for having this. This has been really helpful. I have two questions. So the first one is about, I heard you say that it's for first-time founders only. Is that right? So what is kind of the definition of that, I guess, given that startups can be kind of, yeah, is it like haven't raised a round or?
Yeah, so I can definitely touch on this. So once you think about being a repeat hard tech founder, it's really thinking about can the fellowship, its programming and education, again, help support you in your personal goals. So when you think about this, thinking about if you have been an entrepreneur before, have you had a successful exit? Have you raised any money and done any fundraising? Did you have any revenue from any of these companies? Do you feel like you successfully closed these companies? These are the types of questions that I would ask myself if I were in these shoes to again really see if I needed the education that the Activate Fellowship can provide. That's the main thing of why we ask that question. A lot of our programming and education is tailored toward first seed fundraising rounds, hiring a team, the first, of building a company essentially and how to build a company. So I would think about that. And again, if you have been a repeat hard tech founder before and you maybe still feel like you could utilize and leverage Activate for that education, we could talk about it with specifics for sure if you have more questions on that. But that would be kind of my recommendation. Thinking about that to see, and you would definitely need to communicate that need for the fellowships, I would say education and programming somewhere on the application. I would say more so in your personal. I think it would fit better of what your like professional goals or personal goals for the fellowship. Somewhere in that first page, but that would be kind of my recommendation is to think about that and
Okay.
let me know if question.
Yeah, that's really, really helpful. I'll probably follow up with you about that for specifics. So then the second question is, I heard you mention like you have to quit all other employment during the fellowship. So I'm a lecturer at Berkeley and I teach like 17% like lecture thing, very part-time. Is that like something I would have to stop doing to do the fellowship or?
Yes, if you were to come on as the primary applicant or the primary Activate Fellow, you would have to get rid of all other employment to come and start the fellowship. And essentially, again, that is because we are providing you with a living stipend. So you don't have to have another job. You don't have to have a part-time job. You can focus completely on your company. For co-applicants or those affiliate fellows, there is a little bit of flexibility because they are not receiving the living stipend. There is more flexibility there with other employment or prior employment.
Okay, super. Thanks so much.
Christopher.
Hi, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Well, thank you first, Kerrigan and Rick, for putting on this presentation. So kind of going off of Bosch's question and actually some of our discussion on co-applicants, sorry to keep sticking on the theme. So I would be a first-time founder, but the co-founder in the company and potential co-applicant is kind of serial entrepreneur, professor at university. Is that appropriate to have a kind of more senior, not necessarily senior in the company, although, they're also a co-founder, but a more senior, kind of experienced entrepreneur as a co-applicant? Like, I don't imagine that, they probably wouldn't benefit from, a lot of the Activate's programming, although, myself as the primary applicant definitely would. So is that appropriate as a co-applicant, or, would it be better to apply singly?
My question back to you then, if you said that they really wouldn't be participating in the Activate Fellowship benefits, why are they a co-applicant?
Or I guess they wouldn't be like the educational programming, for example, wouldn't be necessarily be a benefit to them.
In that case,
right.
Yeah, I would say that they could still choose to participate and, kind of help the company in more of an advisory role or still as a co-founder role, but they just don't have to be on the application just to be on the application.
Sure.
I would say it's almost, people that you want to add to the application should be expected to, participate.
Participating. Yeah, for sure.
Yes, I would say definitely talking to him to see maybe what his frame of thinking is on participating in that, or if he even needs it. But I would definitely say if he doesn't need it, then he can definitely just stay on as an advisor.
Would that not strengthen the application though, I guess, like having a co-applicant that has that, entrepreneurial expertise, or not really? I guess would be my question.
Rick, what do you think?
I mean, I would probably say it might not strengthen it. It might feel that you already have access to the people that you need to move it forward. So, I mean, there is a place, I believe, in the application that tells you where you can put like your team, like who you're working with as advisors or as other teammates, and he doesn't have to be a co-founder. I think I would really stick to someone who is starting this company with you to work on it full time, who's gonna really benefit from all the participation in the building of the community and does not have that experience.
Definitely.
I think, Kim, the last thing I'll highlight is, having that co-applicant on the application really does not enhance it too much if you just want it to be, a solo founder and a team of one on the application.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Andy.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate all the info. Last year, for lack of a better explanation, I guess, I found out about the program like right before the deadline. My application wasn't particularly strong or well written. I guess I'd say now I know, and I've been thinking about it for a year. How am I going to be compared, I guess, to the quality of the last application versus like reapplying, I guess? How is that going to be a detriment or not, I guess, to reapplying and having some time to go through?
Yeah, so in the presentation, you remember how I communicated communicating that not the pivot, but kind of what was it? I can't remember the exact kind of phrase that I had. Communicating the pivot, showcasing your growth. So there's going to be a space on the application where you can essentially showcase the growth that you've had over the past year. So this would be the perfect place for you to talk about, again, any technological advances that you've had, any customer validation, customer discoveries as well. However, I will say that they will have I don't believe that they will have access. They will be able to see if you have applied in the past, but yeah, they won't have access to your past application to see that. It'll actually be you kind of telling us what you've done since the last time you applied. Actually, but
Gotcha.
again,
That's
they would be
perfect.
applied in the past, and then you would be communicating what you like to tell us, basically.
Phenomenal. Thank you so much.
Right. Yep. And that touches perfectly on the question that Connie asked for those who have applied before, will the reviewers have access to the previous review? And no, they will not. Again, we'll be able to see that you applied. Shantonio, another question.
Yeah, I'm curious what are some of the programming that co-applicants, there's no benefit in having a co-applicant on the application from what I'm hearing, but what are some of the things that they'll have access to? Traditionally, how has co-applicants participate along with the primary applicants in Activate? What does that look like?
They're all part of the cohort. So in the case,
Okay.
basically the big difference for primary Activate fellows and those affiliate fellows is really the living stipend. Affiliate fellows still get to participate in all of the programming, all of the education, all of the events that we have. They're still a part of our community through and through, on our Slack channels and stuff. Really, again, I think really the only difference or the big difference is just not having that additional living stipend. Rick, is there anything that I'm missing there? Because I think that's the only thing really.
They attend our retreat, which is a kickoff in June. So there is the opportunity to meet all the other fellows, and throughout the year, especially if they're an Anywhere fellow, they get to do all that. They do quarterly trips together in the Anywhere community, and I believe those folks are the affiliate fellow or secondary fellows are also part of that. But yeah, like Harrigan said, we treat them just like any other fellow except for the living stipend, which we know matters, but we just can't, you just don't have enough funding for that, unfortunately. We wish we did.
Yeah, yeah, I'll take care of living stipend, but back to travel and part. Do they get access to like travel stipends, travel support? I'm curious because from my experience, just traveling around and working in network is key for how my company grows. And so I'm curious if they don't get the living stipend, they don't get the benefits, but to travel to some of the retreats and activities, do they get support?
Yeah, we cover the travel to the retreat, so Activate does cover that. And then I believe the primary founder has access to a pot of travel allowance, and I think with approval from the primary, it's all about the relationship between you two. If the primary applicant wants to send a fellow on the trip, I think they can cover it with some of their travel allowance. I believe that's correct. If that's wrong, I will put that out there and let everyone know. But I believe that with the approval from the primary fellow, then they could use some of that travel fund.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Rick.
Yeah.
And I have a question from Janice that kind of touches on that. Do you prefer the primary applicant be the technical partner and not the business partner? So absolutely correct. For that primary applicant or Activate fellow, they do have to meet all of the eligibility requirements. For the co-applicant, again, there is a little bit more flexibility there. But for the primary applicant, Activate fellow, they must meet all eligibility requirements, which includes that tech development, scientific research, or engineering experience. Okay. Are there any last questions before we close out?
I had a question. I unfortunately joined late because time in lab things, but my name is Jimmy Candy. I'm currently a student, graduate student of Virginia Tech, and I'm really interested in the active fellowship, and I guess I want to speak on my kind of situation. I really want to get into entrepreneurship and been working on my own, ideas, trying to go for patent and get sponsors, participate in startup competitions, all of these things just to, help myself out. So for somebody like me in this position, what kind of advice do you guys have? And is this kind of a program kind of a right fit, or do I have to get a bit more established in my business before I can apply for something like this.
Yeah, so I can talk. Can you speak to again what stage you're at? Are you at lab results? Have you gotten a little further? I don't think I caught that in your intro.
Currently, right now, lab results and prototype testing, and of course, participate in a few startup competitions that I've won. But I'm still, trying to raise as much funding as I can in this process.
Is there still for prototype testing? Are you kind of at your first prototype, or is it still kind of like a non-working prototype?
It's a working prototype as a new function, but of course, efficiency and like performance is not up to peak yet.
Mm-hmm. Because you're kind of almost at that stage, I would have to get specifics. What I will say is to send us an email at apply@activate.org. The reason why I say this is because once you kind of get up to a working prototype, I don't know if quite you're too far along or like right at that stage where you're too far along. What I will say is just to give the general kind of guidelines for the, I would say, stages that we accept. The earliest stage is going to be an idea phase with some type of early lab results that can show some of its viability, all the way up into getting to that working prototype or kind of a first prototype. It could be non-working or working, but you still need a certain level of de-risking or research that needs to be done over the fellowship for that advancement with that technology. I hope that helps. If that doesn't help kind of where you might be kind of with your prototype, again, send us an email at apply@activate.org with a little bit more specifics on kind of where you are, and then we'll be able to help on whether you're eligible or not.
So I currently do also work in the lab with running other experiments and different kind of projects. What is, I guess, how does that work if you do work in one lab? Does the project have to be yours, or if I'm affiliated with a different university like Virginia Tech where I work at, how does that work?
Yeah, you would just need to have IP generation over that, but that doesn't have to be required right at the start of the fellowship, because I know that could have some nuance and some situations to it as well. Let's talk more because I want to get these other questions out of the way as well. What I would also recommend to you, Jimmy, is kind of looking at our general recruitment webinar. If you haven't seen it already, that has kind of a little bit more of kind of talking about like our general information as well, if that might help. But you can always send us an email if you have those specific questions.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Janice.
Yes, thank you. So I've been typing so much, I thought maybe I should just speak up. And again, on the teaming, I hope this is useful for many people. I guess it's come up a lot. Both my co-founder and I, we're both technical. We both meet all of the eligibility requirements. As it turns out, the way the product that we're developing is, he's doing more of the technical, I'm doing sort of the marketing and customer discovery. In that case, do you care who's the primary? Am I just splitting hairs by asking that question?
I would say kind of splitting hairs is really your decision, honestly. Who do you want to be the CEO and who you want to be maybe, again, both people should have decision-making power over the company. It's just one's going to be funded, one is not, but you're still kind of expected to both be leads in whatever that might look like for you. I will say it is a lot of kind of you deciding how you want to build your company and then just kind of communicating that and being transparent about that as you're going through the selection, the interview process, as well as the fellow experience. I hope that helps.
It does. I'll just kind of follow up. So I'm wondering if it should be the person who's doing the technical de-risking, for example, should that be the one who's getting the stipend? Is that kind of how that should work, or do you care?
Again, they should be potentially one making decisions. Whether they're going to be the one actually in the lab every day is more so up to you. But again, you should be expected to make some technical decisions if it comes down to it.
Got it.
That decision-making power is really the main thing about being an Activate Fellow, because again, you are going to be either the CEO, CTO, or something of that nature. So you really do need to have that decision-making power within yourself as well as your co-applicant, because yeah, we do have, I will say the blueprint and can give you support, but you will be at the helm of your company. you will be the CEO and the founder of your company. So thinking about and framing that of how you want to shape your company. Again, you would just be kind of communicating that to us, but your goals, the goals for the fellowship are what they look like to you.
Okay, thanks so much.
You're welcome. Raha, I hope I'm saying your name right, but you are next.
Yeah, Raha, thank you so much. I applied last year and I got through the first round of interview. And unfortunately, I didn't get any kind of feedback. So it's kind of hard for me to decide if I should apply again or not. And from my from the interview, I felt that one of the judges didn't like the type of technology that I'm working on. My question is, if I apply for the same community, if I go to the next round, are am I going to talk to the same judges, or that's one question. Second question is, most of the questions in the first round of interview was the detail about the technical part. And because of this trade secret, I couldn't at that time share many details regarding the technology and how we are making the product. Yeah. So, what is your, kind of advice or comment about that?
Yeah, so I can talk first about your applying for the same community. I believe that if you did meet with the community team or the selection committee for that community, it is generally going to be the same people. Of course, I can't speak to exactly who you talk to. I would say if you do have any kind of that, definitely bringing that up to the community team and making that known throughout the process or at that stage of the process. Definitely welcome and appreciated that you would be transparent at that point. Again, if you do feel uncomfortable. And then again, because of your trade secrets, there is a real balance that you have to strike, unfortunately, with that, because it's, your nature of kind of sharing what you are comfortable with sharing while also not giving away the trade secrets. Again, it is a balance. I really can't recommend anything because, it's things that, aren't, our trade secrets, but really kind of how you want to communicate and what you do feel comfortable with sharing that you still feel like can articulate your vision for the company and where you're looking to go. But again, I understand that it is tough with trade secrets and trying to kind of feed that into a proposal in which you are talking about your technology. I wish I was more help with that, but I can't be. But I will say it's definitely a balance. So if you want to kind of maybe get some resources or maybe some public speaking to try to kind of help with crafting that script, that might help. But I feel your pain. I feel your pain.
Yeah.
It is definitely a balance.
Thank you so much. That was helpful. Thank you.
And Antonio.
Yeah. So I'm following up on the point about, the project needs some technical de-risking. You have to communicate the need for the fellowship through that technical lens. But also, you have on the business side, partnerships, doing field demo and all of those stuff. If you would put this on a spectrum, let's say you have your prototype done. It hasn't been field tested, for example. You haven't clarified, market uptake. Would this be a fit for the Activate Fellowship? That's kind of reaching that end of the spectrum, I guess, where it becomes a gray area. So I want a little bit of comment on that. And to what extent do you guys value leveraging a certain community to establish the partnerships needed to move the startup forward?
Rick, do you want to take a stab at that one? I don't have any initial thoughts.
No, I mean, I guess your question is really like how ready is too, like how far along is too ready? How, it's sort of that question, right, Antonio, or is that how early is too early? we've seen everything through that whole process. I've seen products, we've accepted people at different stages. So there's no real one answer, I think, not a great answer, but I think it's all dependent on what impact you think the technology is going to have. It's really about that and how much you are going to benefit from the fellowship as an individual and as a company in order to be able to, after the 2 years, scale up and really, launch your product and get it commercialized. So it might take you 2 years at whatever stage you're at any of those things. It just really depends on what case you make during that selection process to the committee and to the reviewers about your technology and you as an individual benefiting from this, I would say. So I don't know if that was helpful, but we've seen it all. We've seen there. It's just that you can't be already like ready to launch and already have raised a lot. You already have the investors. You're not going to need us, right? You're ready to go. Or if you don't really have a really strong technology, you just haven't done a lot of customer discovery, and you can't really make that case without showing some sort of data, then it's going to be harder for the committee to want to choose you without more information. And maybe it'll take another year for you to do that, which is probably why a lot of our fellows, after they apply a second time, might get in, or a third time.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I think you addressed the question.
Okay. Thanks.
Now I'm going to close us out now. Please send us an email at apply@activate if you have an additional question. Thanks for that. I'm going to close us out really, really quickly so that we can go and enjoy the rest of our Thursday afternoons. I'm going to share my screen again. Thank you for all of those great questions, by the way. Some amazing, amazing questions. So long story short, stay engaged with us. Applications open in just a couple of weeks. If you have not signed already, please sign up to receive communications for our upcoming application cycle at activate.org/apply. For any questions, you again can email us at any time at apply@activate.org. You can attend our events through the summer at the events page, and you can again watch past webinars on YouTube. And for upcoming virtual webinars on the day that applications open, we will be back, Rick and I, to give you more of just a general presentation on learning more about the Activate Fellowship. So talking about the ins and outs of the benefits, as well as the communities. Again, just a big overview of all of the general information about the Activate Fellowship. Thank you. And have a great rest of your day and a great weekend. Thanks for joining.